Hi, everybody, and welcome to another team training for the Oklahoma Housing Needs Assessment project that we're working on here at OU. And uh, this is a lesson on querying GIS data. And so if you've been looking at some of the other earlier tutorials, they're sort of very preliminary, and this is where we really get into sort of the power of GIS and how it works with data. And this is part of our prototype model flowchart. And again, we're focusing on the GIS software, but this is also, some is related to, how you use your variable data. So with that, I'm going to shift over to ArcMap. And this exercise, I think you really see how it is sort of a close application of some of the things that we're interested in our housing project in using real estate data. So here we are. We've got a map, and we've got three layers. In the map, we've got a street layer, which are just these polylines here, like Texas, Webster, Orange, avenues, and Western Union, Colton streets. So we have a street grid, and then we have parcels, and we have the neighborhood parcels, which are part of this neighborhood here, and we've got the symbology for them, and we got it classified into categories. So some of the properties are for sale and others are not, and we're showing them with different colors. And then we have our surrounding parcels that are adjacent to the neighborhood but are outside, are colored yellow, right? And so we're dealing here with parcel level data in a residential neighborhood. And this might be, kind of analogous to like using Zillow, or MLS data, multiple listing service data. So, what you could imagine here is that, like, maybe you're a realtor and you have a database of in your town or sales area, and you have clients come in and they're looking for properties, and this is a way that you can identify properties very quickly and sort of query them and see if they're suitable for your clients, right? So let's get into this. I'll just start very simply, like with our identify tool. If I click on one of these parcels that are for sale, it brings me up the parcel data that I'm interested in. And, this is very similar to what you might find from a county assessor. Maybe not as complete as that, but there's a lot of things. It says it has like a property identification number. It tells the land use and the zoning designation. It's R1, it's zip code, who the owner is, the address of the parcel, how many bedrooms it has, status, which is just if it's for sale, it's yes. If it's not, it's no. It's sale price, it's square footage, number of bathrooms, whether it has a pool or not, right? And it also has this image field, which we'll talk about more later. But it just gets you kind of familiar with the parcels for sale. And if you click on them, you'll just see the same thing. It just shows which ones are sale. Now, close down that identify tool, and I want to go and show you a feature now that we use when we're selecting parcels. So say we want to select some parcels here. Over in the table of contents, we've been just listing things by drawing order, but if we go over here to the fourth one from the left, you'll see there's list by selection here. And so we can look at this table of contents in a different way, and we can say, okay, which of these parcels are selectable? So there's nothing, it's telling us none of the features have been selected yet, but they're all selectable. Well, we're not interested in the streets or the other parcels. So I'm going to click on the little icon and turn it off. And you see that these two are non-selectable now. And then the neighborhood parcels are selectable. And that's how we can isolate what we're looking for. And then I'll go back to my normal table of contents view. Then What we're going to do here is we're going to do some selection, and in this case, we're going to start out by selecting things by location. Basically, you can go at selecting in two different ways. You can start by looking at the map and selecting things, or you can look at the attribute table and go the other direction and select by attributes and then show them on the map. And we're going to look at both here. Before we start, I'm going to check my selection options, and there's a bunch of possible ways to select things. And we're going to select features that are partially or completely within the box or graphic. And right now it's got a selection tolerance of 5 pixels. I'm going to set that to 0. I don't want any overlap in my selection. And so if you set that to 0, that's the best way to make sure that that's going to happen. So we'll just hit OK there. All right, so now I'm ready to select, and let's say that I want to select the corner lots in the neighborhood that are for sale, okay? And, corner is not something that we saw, in our data query here. We're using the identify tool, so, we can't just do that. We're going to have to visually select them. And so this little tool here has a white arrow and the little parcels is the select feature. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to go over to the selection menu again, and I'm going to go down to interactive selection method. And you can create a new selection, add to current selection, remove, or select from the current selection. So we got nothing selected right now. So I'm just going to leave add here selected. So if that's not selected, then make sure that it is. And all right, so then I'm going to select, here's a corner lot. Now you can see here, it may be a little bit hard to see, but it is now highlighted with a cyan box. And so now we got to go through and find all of them. And all I have to do is click on them, and you see, because add to the current selection was selected, it's adding them on there. Now there are 8 corner lots, so it's a bit of a scavenger hunt here to find them all. So just bear with me while I click on them all. I think I got them all selected now, right? And so you can see they're selected on the screen. Now, if I right click on neighborhood parcels and open up the attribute table, well, what you'll see here is that it's showing us that 8 out of 510 parcels are selected. So I did in fact find all 8. Down here, we're just showing the selected records. If I click on show all records, you'll see all of the 510, and then I have to scroll down to find the ones that I want. So this is a handy feature to isolate the ones that I'm interested in. And I can sort these. So like if I want to sort by sale price, I can right click there I'll click the sales price column and right click on it. And then I'll say, okay, sort descending. So now the highest price property is on the top going down to the lowest, right? And so you can kind of see, that 901 Washington Street is the highest price property. So if I go and click on this little gray box next to the record, it now turns that feature, it's like a selection of a selection, yellow. But you can see that, what's happening in the attribute table is showing on the map. And that's very handy, for you to be able to find what you're looking for, right? Okay, so I'm going to close the attribute table down, and I'm going to double click here on neighborhood parcels, and I'm going to show you another feature that GIS has built into it, right? And I'm going to go to the display tab. If you're not there, go to the display tab, and I'm going to turn on this little feature here called support hyperlinks. Okay. And so basically we can have a hyperlink, a URL essentially, or a field that in the attribute table where we have hyperlinks stored for the different parcels here. And so I'm going to change it from owner name down to image, which is the field that has these hyperlinks stored in there. And so we're getting them from the document. So I'm going to hit OK here. And then up on the navigation bar, we have hyperlink, looks like a little lightning bolt. We're going to click on that. And what you're going to notice here, and again, it might be a little kind of hard to see on the screen, but the ones that the properties that have hyperlinks have a blue outline on top of the cyan, right? And so I tell you what, let me turn off the selection here. So to turn off the selection, you just go up to selection menu, clear selected features. And maybe you can see the blue a little bit better. I don't know, but not every property has a hyperlink. Yeah, and so like if we click on one that does, it's going to open up. It's going to go to that hyperlink, and so I'm gonna switch shares here just briefly to show you. That in this case we had a photo of the property there, right? But it could be whatever hyperlink that you wanted to, a web page or whatever. You just store it in there in that image field. All right, and then I'm just going to go back now to ArcMap. All right, so another way we can find things is to use these binocular tools up here. And if we get that, you'll have feature, and this is kind of a search tool that we're looking for. So I can put in an address. So 831 Washington Street, and it says, well, you can search all the visible layers, or you can say, no, we want to look specifically in neighborhood parcels. So a lot of these dialog boxes, you just kind of read what they're asking for, and then you can fill in the blanks. And then it says here, find features that are similar to or contain the search string. And in my experience, GIS is a database, and databases are very particular about what they're looking for. So, I've got 831 Washington Street in here typed in just like I think it's stored in the database. If you were to spell out, for instance, street, might not get it. Or if you misspelled Washington, you might not find it, right? But at any rate, we're going to search in the neighborhood parcels layer, and then it wants to know, well, all fields or in which field. And of course, if you can narrow it down, it will go much faster. So we're going to use in field, and this is of course the address field, and we'll hit find here, and there it gives you the results. Maybe it might find more than one in some cases. Now I'm going to click on this, and before I do, I just want to alert you that it has kind of a cool feature here where it will point it out on the map. So here we go. There, you see how it showed those lines, and then it lit it up, and you can do it over and over again, right? And it'll help you identify where that property is. Okay. All right, so let me close that down. So that's kind of how you find things and query data by location. And then, of course, the inverse, the other way, is to query them by attribute. Okay, so let's take a look at how you might do that. All right, so go up to the selection tool. In this case, we're going to go select by attributes. And it's going to bring up this little dialog box here. And some of you may kind of be familiar with this because it looks a lot like an SQL query, SQL structural query language. And you're basically building a logic statement, that says, hey, here's what I'm looking for. And so in this case, first you start out with the layer you want. And so we want neighborhood parcels. Okay. And so let's say we're a realtor, we have a client, they're looking for something. Okay. So they're looking for a house for sale, right? So in this box here, it shows all the fields in neighborhood parcels. So we're going to start with status, right? Because we want status equal to, and the easy way to do this here is to get all the unique values. So it's net yes or no, right? So it's a kind of a logical statement. And so we want yes. And so you double click on yes, and it makes this syntax here, which you can see there are quotation marks around and things. So again, it's very persnickety about what it's looking for. So let's see if this works. If I hit apply, Well, there you go. And so it lit up all of the parcels that are for sale. And so then you say, well, my client is looking for houses that are for sale, and they want the number of bedrooms to be 3. So, okay, so we double click on 3. I'm sorry, on bedrooms, and then we hit equal, and then get unique values, and then 3, right? And so now we got status equals yes, and bedrooms equal 3, apply. And so now you see some of the selection disappeared here because they had 2 or 4 bedrooms or something. So now we've got it narrowed down, and then we say, well, we also have a price limitation. Okay, so and again, and these are logical operators, so you can do and or not. There are different things we can do here, but in this example, it's and we want sale price, okay, to be less than 175,000. And notice I didn't put any commas or dollar signs or anything in there. It just wants to know what the number is. I think this is an integer field. If it's a floating point field, then you could use a decimal point. But let's see what happens here. Now, there you go. I think one or two went away, right? So most of these are affordable. And we'll hit OK here. And then I'm going to right click and open up the attribute table real quick so we can see here. Again, I've got the one selected. There were 11 that matched our search criteria. And this is really handy. And so, a lot of times we want to get these selections, out of the current map or even out of the program. And so some of the ways to do that, you can right click on neighborhood parcels, and you can go down here to data and export data. And then it'll give you a choice here. And if we hit the little, first you have to say we want the selected features and from this layer source data. And then you say, and then you can tell it where you want to save it. And you can say, okay. And then it says, hey, do you want to add this as a layer to your map? Yes, I do. And then when it does that, it brings an export output layer in. I'll change it red so you can see this better, right? And so it actually created a whole new feature class that you can see here that is just the data that we had selected. So that's one way to export data. Another way is to go up here in your attribute table to this little drop-down table and go to export. And this, again, looks very similar. But if I hit OK this time, hold on a second. Not exactly what I wanted here. If I hit export this time, and I hit the little browse button, it will give me a choice of type. So it's asking me where I want to save it, and the default is a file in personal geodatabase table. But you can also save it as a DBase table. So if we were taking this into a database program, particularly DBase, right? You could save it here. You can also save it just as a text file. And so that's another way to export data. Now, a lot of times I get asked about exporting data to Excel, because that's something that we often want to do. And you can see that that Excel or comma or serial limited form was not one of the export features. But what we can do here is, after you have your selection selected, just go over here to the first little gray box, not the one on the headers, right? But the one that has the data, like right there. And then right click on that, and you'll get a little context menu and see it says copy selected. Okay, so I'm gonna say, hey, copy selected right there. Okay. And then I'm going to go over to Excel, and I've got a blank worksheet here in Excel. But if I just right click there in A1 and I go paste, boom, it puts in all my data right out of my attribute table. So that's real handy feature if you want to export your data into Excel. So that's kind of gives you an overview on querying data, both by location and by attribute. In the next exercise, we'll talk about joining data to some existing attribute tables. And this really will start to get into, how we can like add things like our census data or other tables of data into our ArcGIS database.